Hey, it's Kevin DeWitch here, and welcome to another plugin knowledge session. In this session, we're going to continue on with our PSP InfiniStrip video selection, but in this one, we're going to check out the PreAmp modules. So firstly, if you are new to my channel or new to my videos and you like what you see, please click the thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, click the notification bell to be notified of all my future videos. So PreAmp modules in PSP InfiniStrip. So as I said, we've done a bit of an overview already in a previous video. We're going to run through each of the modules individually, and this one specifically is about the PreAmp modules. We've got a few different modules that are on offer here with different textures, distortions, clean, all that sort of stuff. So let's just get into it and I will show you what they're all about. All right, we're over in Cubase now, and we're going to check out the PreAmp modules in the PSP InfiniStrip. So I've got a bass guitar here, and I've just put on the mono version because it is a mono track. And this is what our bass sounds like. All right, pretty simple, nothing over the top. Obviously, PreAmp can be used on anything. I'm just putting it on here at the moment. We'll see how we go. We might put it on some other instruments if need be, but it's more of a demonstration or a walkthrough of the modules themselves as opposed to, playing with various instruments. Okay, so first off, there is 5 gain modules, okay? Now, you can see here's the 5. So I'll just give a quick description from the manual of what PSP have called out as being the flavor for each of these preamps and potentially why you might want to use them. So we start off here with the gain, okay? This is the simplest of the lot, and it's basically a transparent, clean preamp. That's about as good as it says. And they suggest the applications are whenever you want extra gain without any coloration. So if you just need to do a boost of the signal, then you can throw on this preamp here. Personally, I probably don't see myself using it too much because if I need to boost my signal, I'd probably just do it in clip gain within Cubase itself. If it has no coloration, I'm not really sure that I would use it. But, look, so there might be a purpose for it somewhere along the track, as in maybe you need to put it in the chain. Okay, so for instance, let's say you had a longer chain here and you did some EQ changes or something along the line, did a lot of cuts, and you suddenly lost a bit of volume, you might want to throw in the gain control here just to boost it back up to feed a good signal into the next module, which is, say, the compressor here. That's probably the most likely thing that I would use that for if I was going to use it at all. But otherwise, I probably wouldn't use it. Okay, the next one is the Pre-60s, which is designed to emulate the signature dense, dark sound of classic 60s preamps and consoles. The suggested applications are adds old school character and liveliness to your sound. You can use this, for example, take a digital sounding synth, sound more vivid and organic in your mix to make the track sound more alive. The English on that's not the best, but you get the point. So they're talking about, taking some digital sterile type sounds there and adding a bit of 60s vibe to it, a bit of liveliness and character to it. Okay, next we have the Pre-70s, and let me guess, this is to give us the sound of the 70s. And yes, it is. It's designed to emulate the signature solid-state Class A dynamic preamps of classic 70s preamps and consoles. Suggested applications is makes fat drums sound huge. That's fat with a PH. rounds the tone of bass with an extended low end, softens unpleasant artifacts without losing transients. Careful not to overdo the drive control. Too much drive may attenuate the sound. Use a subtle drive setting on strings to add a warm analog feel. Now, just instantly looking at the layout here, it screams a Neve to me. The type of knobs here, a lot of the time the graphics give away what they tried to emulate. They're not claiming to emulate those, so I'm not going to say they actually are, but you never know. Next, we have the Pre-80s. So, designed to emulate the signature transformerless preamps with extended dynamic range and punch of classic 80s preamps and consoles. Suggested applications is adds fast and over-exaggerated transients while remaining natural sounding. Can be used with moderate drive settings on basically any sound source. While it may seem more subtle than pre-70s, it offers a lively, vintage sound with controlled peaks. At higher drive settings, you can get truly pumping, energetic drums that jump out of the mix. All right, and lucky last is the ADC 90s. So emulates a typical 12-bit non-linear analog to digital converter with its limited dynamic range, sharp clipping, and distortion. Suggested applications can be used to control overly present drum transients by applying subtle clippings. This can be used to increase the mean signal level of a track. So let's just quickly go back to the gain control here. Okay, so the controls are auto, is a automatic gain adjustment. Okay, so basically the description states that when active, AGA, which is the automatic gain adjustment, uses the reference level, which is this knob here, set by the reference knob, as a threshold for when to apply gain. If the signal level is above the reference level, the gain is automatically reduced. Okay, so it's sort of like leveling. So that's interesting. Okay. That might make this useful. If that actually works efficiently, that may make it useful because you could start to level out your vocals automatically with this gain module and do it cleanly. Okay, so the gain control, it adjusts the gain. You can see it's got plus 30 dB, minus 30 dB. When we go into auto, I'm assuming that it's disabled. I mean, even though I can turn the knob, it is highlighted as auto, so I'm assuming it means it does not do anything. And I mean, that's what it states in the manual. Okay, we've got a little meter here, just indicates the approximate signal level after you adjust the gain. All right, so obviously it's going to get louder as we boost or lower if we cut, whatever else. Okay, we've got this up, down, or down switch. I assume that's what DWN is. Okay, this determines how the gain knob reacts to the reference knob when in AGA mode. Okay, so I'm assuming it does nothing now, but when we're in auto, in up-down mode, the gain is allowed to increase and decrease in value, whereas in down mode, the gain can only decrease in value. This control is also affected by the RMS peak setting. Okay, so again, that is a very good feature. So if this auto gain works, I could see this being useful if we had, let's say, again, a vocal track, and we wanted to sort of do some leveling out of that gain. Where we might use it is if we were to set, so we find our quietest part. Let's say we find our quietest part, and we boost our gain to get it to the level we want. We could then set it to just the down mode. So then it just pulls down all the louder parts and keeps it at the same reference level. Obviously the up down will do both. So we would probably, I guess, we would find our middle range there. If we wanted to do up down, we'd find a nice middle range, set that to our reference, and then we could set it to up down and it could boost the low parts, and it could cut or dip the loud parts. We'll obviously find out if that works soon enough. We'll see. All right, and then you've got an RMS peak switch, which determines if AGA mode uses RMS, which is root mean square, which is just average, basically average of your audio volume, or peak levels when detecting gain levels. When set to RMS, AGA applies a 12 dB level offset. Okay, so again, very interesting. If you have it on peak, then it's going to be reacting very sporadically. A lot of the time it's going to be really reacting live. It's going to be taking all the peaks and reacting to those peaks and troughs. RMS, it's obviously going to work a lot slower. It's going to be trying to average out, and it may respond not to all of the peaks. It's going to average as the point. Okay, so as I said, the reference knob here actually sets the level for the automatic gain control here between minus 30 dB or 0 dB. All right, and then we have a polarity button here, so we can swap the polarity. Okay, we only have one button on this. If I had the stereo version up, we have two. We would have a left and right so that we could switch one side or the other. So if you just need to switch the polarity, you can do that. So the drive knob adjusts the gain for the particular flavor, right? So for the 60s flavor, if you had the 70s, it would be driving the the gain for the 70s flavor. And you can take it between, well, it says minus 30 and plus 30. The manual actually says minus 24. But anyway, we won't argue that point. The higher the drive setting, the more analog saturation added to the source audio, which is what you'd pretty much expect. All right, so the noise mode switch, okay, that's this one here, determines the operating mode of the noise emulation. On, okay, so if we switch it on, it turns on noise emulation. If we set it to auto, it automatically sets the noise level based on the source audio signal level. And off turns off noise. So I guess not only do we get a drive, distortion characteristics of the preamp, but we can also introduce some of the, I guess, emulated natural noise of that unit, whatever unit they have looked at and based this on. You can turn it on or you can turn it off. Auto sounds interesting because that obviously is impacted by what the audio source is doing, I guess. And then you have your noise knob, which adjusts the level of the analog hiss emulation between minus 120 dB and minus 60 dB. So all pretty low. And this button here activates or deactivates this section, right? So obviously if we turn it off, this gets turned off and does nothing. Turn it on, it's turned on. Okay, and all the other modules have the same settings, which is good, right? Because the whole point of this is that you can flick between them and compare. So you've obviously got some presets for this, so they've given you some examples here. Clean, soft, saturated. Now, on this module here, we're not seeing anything with these first 5. We see a change happen when we get down to 6, where we actually start adjusting the level. And you can see, so this is clean minus 18 dB. So they've got the reference set to minus 18 dB, RMS, up, down, auto gain control on. Now, the reason you don't see anything for the first ones is because you need to be on a coloration one, which has the drive settings, because that's where it comes in. So clean is clean, okay? They do nothing. Soft, okay? We're cutting some of the drive, which is interesting, but we've turned on the analog module at least. Saturated, they're pushing the drive. Driven, they're really pushing the drive. and analog, pushing the drive a little bit and setting the noise to auto with a bit on there. Okay. And then the last few here are pretty much the same. So they're all doing this minus 18 dB. Now, if you don't unaware, the reason that they're doing minus 18 dB is because that sort of value has been called out as being the sweet spot for a lot of analog emulation plugins. So I guess what they've done is they've put these presets in here because they're going to work hand in hand with their other modules, because it's going to allow it to automatically gain to minus 18 dB and feed it into the modules correctly. Now, whether you use the automatic gain is going to be dependent on your material, because having everything at a flat, even level is not always what you want. But it's definitely an interesting concept to try out. All right, so it's bypassed at the moment and it's doing nothing. So start our bass. Let's bring the plugin in. So I've just got this master control here just so we can see sort of what's happening on the meters. Everything's green, which is good. So we're feeding a good level in. Now, I'm just going to turn this down a little bit while I... So you can hear that staying very clean, all right? That is just pushing the gain or turn it down. You know, no big deal. Switch the phase, doesn't really matter. Double click, we're back to normal. Right, so now if we set an auto gain, now if I push it up here, you'll see it's not really doing anything because I've only got it set to down. I'm just curious to see if you can see what it's actually doing, or if it's just so dynamic you can't see it. Okay, let's set it to the minus 18 anyway, and let's switch our up down. Well, let's switch to up down. So you can see that it moved the knob. Now I can override it, but it fights me, alright? So only if I go up high though. If I bring it down low, it just leaves it alone. You can see it adjust itself a little bit, but we are on RMS. So what if we now do the same thing? So let's just sort of reset it. But let's go to peak this time. Let's see what it does when we're on peak mode. Okay, so you can see it adjust. Like, it's not constantly adjusting, but it adjusts every now and then. Okay, so that's interesting. And look, to be honest, I think it's a good feature. I think it would be a matter of playing around with it, finding the right use for it. And if you've got a bass guitar, say for instance, like this one here, that you really want to be rock solid in its level and it's consistent through your song, then this could be very useful if it works. And it seems to be doing a half decent job. Now, I wouldn't rely just solely on this, but this is giving you a head start, right? So it's trying to level a little bit, and then we can use compression and stuff after that fact as well to even lock it in a little bit more. And this is going to feed the compressors at a more consistent level so that you're getting a more consistent sound from the compressor as opposed to a variance by depending on how hard it's hitting or not hitting and how hard it's compressing. Now, what I want to do is let's just get this. I'm going to go straight back to nothing. Okay, so it's just default. What I want to do is I'm just going to quickly switch between all of the modules with clean, right? So we're not going to be listening to the analog part. And I just want to see, is there a difference with them just in clean mode? Okay, so I'm not hearing any difference when in clean mode. Now, what if we were to set, say, the automatic gain control? I'll set it to peak, which would be the most reactive. And let's flick through with it doing that. So we're still doing it clean. No, so I mean, pretty much what I figured. It didn't really change. That's what I expected. So that's good. I'm going to crank this up a little bit, actually. Yeah, maybe we'll come down a little bit. All right, so let's move on from this module because obviously we've pretty much covered the extent of this module. There's not much else to do. It's got a useful feature in automatic gain control, but what we want to hear now is what do the preamps do? What do the characters do? What's the flavor? I'm not going to change any of the settings here, and I'm just going to turn on analog. All right, we're going to see if we hear a difference. So I've got no extra drive. It is just sitting at 0. It doesn't mean it's not driving. It's just at 0. Okay, not really hearing any difference. So how about let's drive it now. If we go full, now you can see the light obviously flashing there. We're getting a bit of grit in there. So you can hear there's a bit of difference there. It's still fairly subtle, even pushed hard. Okay, let's flick through with this maximum setting. Okay, so I think it adds a nice little bit of drive, character there. Now, if you obviously went lower, I'd imagine it wouldn't do much at all, but it just depends on how hard you're pushing that signal to start with. So if you're pushing your audio in pretty high, you might need to pull the drive back just to keep it consistent, but you'd be looking at this lamp to see. I don't know where a nice spot would be. It all depends on your instrument. Sometimes you want just a touch of distortion added to it, just a tiny bit. You don't want it to sound crunchy or gnarly. All right, let's have a play with the noise now. So if we turn the noise on, turn up to full, you can see the meters stay on there. Turn it off, it disappears. So obviously it's adding a bit of hiss. I can't actually hear it with these headphones, but I don't know if that's because maybe it's at a frequency I can't hear, going deaf in old age. It's a weird thing. I've never been one to really like adding noise. Just didn't really see the point of it. If we set it to auto, okay, so you can see in auto mode, even if I push it to full, it sort of disappears when there's no signal. And I can only assume that it comes back in and adds it when there's a signal. All right, so this is a frequency analyzer that I've just put after it. And you can see here with the noise, if I have it turned on, if I have it down here, you can't really see anything. It's down at 120. Right, there's nothing really, well, it's so low, you're not going to hear it. So if I bring it up to the full, you can see there, this is the noise that is adding. So if I was to do something strange and put, say, a gain control, let's say here, another one. You can now hear, or I can hear it. This is the noise that it is adding. So if I set it to auto when there's no audio signal, can't hear it. Off, obviously it's off. Okay, but that's boosted, like massively boosted, okay? You would not do that. So I guess if you really want that authentic little bit of that, it's sort of like white noise really, or pink noise in the background there, you can obviously turn that on. I'm not sure if it's essential there, but so in their analog preset, they add this tiny bit of noise on the bottom there. And I guess it just, I don't know, it's one of those things, right? Sometimes people claim that having this noise there, even though I can't hear it because it's so low, it does have an impact on your signal and makes it seem more real, more analog, because you feel it. It's still being absorbed through your ears, and there's just something about it that makes it feel right. So obviously, whether you add it or not, it's entirely your choice, but they've set it to auto so that in silent parts, the noise isn't there. It's only there when the instrument plays or the vocal plays, right? So I guess that's still a good feature because it's still going to keep your silent parts clean. But if you don't even want that and you want to try and get that sort of, let's just say tape hiss, it could resemble a bit of tape hiss, then turn it on. But if you want tape hiss, I'd say you'd be pushing it up pretty high. So it really depends on your theory on noise, right? Or just turn it off if you don't think that it adds any value and you don't care and you'd prefer your song to be cleaner. But obviously the drive setting here, this is what's adding the character. And as I gave an example before, if we turn this, or if we go to, that's pretty crunchy there. Now, if I don't use the gain, so if I don't use the auto gain, I can push that drive even more by pushing this gain. We can get really nasty. So now, see how that, let me turn that down before I do that. See how this drive is naturally compressing our signal? If I lower the drive, it starts getting louder. And it lets the gain control work. Whereas here, we compress. The drive is compressing our signal. It's just flatlining it. So these two controls can obviously work hand in hand. So you might say, okay, well, I want to add a bit of drive. But I'm going to push my gain. Maybe you drop the volume. Alright. That's pretty gnarly though. I don't think I'd do that. I think I'd set my auto gain here. Set it to whatever you want. Let's go with the -18 or thereabouts. Add a bit of drive. And then play with your preamp, see which one you like. Now, this is not a good example, but I'm going to do it anyway because I just like to do it to show people I would never use these settings. So I'm going to push that up to full, and I'm going to push the gain control up to full. And I'm going to see what does that do to our switching between the preamps. So this is, sorry, sometimes I get criticized for doing these where I do things over the top, but to me, it gives you a very good example of hearing the obvious difference between them. Okay, you would never use these settings, but if you really want to hear what's the difference, really what is it doing if I push it really hard? But as I said, it's not the way you should use it. Right, so this is like just, wow. Just destroyed. This one obviously can take it a lot more. It's not distorting as much. But you can hear the difference in the distortion quality that's providing. This one's very high mid. This one's very digital almost sounding, to be honest. Now, as I said, you would never do that, or you should never do that. But with a bit of subtle flavor. Can add a little bit of extra life. And you'll get a different quality with each one of these preamps. Now you can hear that. I mean, have a listen closely, right? So when I do this sounds okay, but it sounds a little bit flat. But you can hear that extra life it puts in this drive. It's subtle, but it just adds that little bit of zing to it. It's just, and this is what you do in mixing, right? These are the little things, these little things. People always go, oh, I want that analog sound, right? And they're looking for something massive. You don't get something massive. You go for something subtle like this. You add these little textures throughout your mix, and all of it adds together in one big mixing pot and creates your sound. If you overdo everything, then everything's going to be overdone. But just this subtle little bit of life added to it. Oh, yeah, I like this. It sounds great. It's just adding something to this bass. And each one is doing it slightly different, so they're all good. It's just which one do you like? And it's going to depend on your genre of music too, because, this one seems to add a bit of top end sort of, clack to it as well. So this might be really good for some sort of, new metal gent type thing where you've got that bass and you want that real clack sound, that's going through with the big boom. As opposed to, going down to these other ones where you start to get a lot more mellower, rounded sound. All right, let's quickly throw it on something else. All right, let's chuck our auto on. Okay, you do it to peak, it likes to drop it a lot. And that's probably because drums are very peaky, so RMS is probably the most logical there. Because that's actually dropping it too much with the in peak mode. All right, let's get onto some flavor here. So if we push it there, you can hear that crunch coming in. It's really compressing the drums. Like if I turn it off, you hear the kick and the snare really get squashed and crunched. So if you wanted to if you wanted to do some sort of parallel processing where you add a crunchy drum in there, this might be the approach to go. If you're just actually looking to do this, it's probably not. It's probably a bit too much. It really helps to bring up the room and the lower signals. It's almost like it's working as a compressor. This one seems to be you can hit it a bit harder. It doesn't compress as much. one's a bit, to me, I guess this one to me is a bit clinical sounding. Now, it all depends what you're going for. This might be really good for some EDM type stuff where you still want that digital type sound, you know, very clean, but you want the extra life, you know. I mean, it's still supposed to be adding analog, but it doesn't sound as analog as the other ones. Probably by my ears at the moment. I mean, I like them all, but the 70s and 80s is really the ones that jump out to me. I really like that extra life it's adding to those drums. Anyway, I think that's probably all we could do. We could go through numerous other instruments here, but I'm not going to do that in this stage. We will do a video where I'm going to do more of a practical approach and probably throw this stuff on a mix and just run through a few things and see, you know, what sort of we can get out of it. But I'm really, so far, really impressed with this plugin, and I really like these preamps. They sound really good. And they're easy to use and easy to flick through. So it'd be interesting to also see in the future if they add more modules, as in more types, because that would be really good to be able to grow the capacity of this, even if you had to buy like add-ons or something like that. I would be all for that if that came about. So there you go. There are the PreAmp modules in the PSP InfiniStrip plugin. Let me know what you think of them in the comments below. If you have any questions, again, please feel free to put them in the comments below. I'd love to hear your feedback or input on these plugins and these modules, what you like about them. Let me know if there's any preamps that you would like PSP to add to this plugin in the future. I'm very interested to have some discussions around that, if there's something that you would really like to see in here. Again, if you like the video, please click the thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, click the notification bell to be notified of all my future videos. I really do appreciate the support, and thank you greatly for watching these videos. Hopefully the video has been helpful. Thank you for watching, and I will catch you in the next one.